So welcome everyone. My name is Sita Williams from the Workforce Alliance of the North Bay, and I'd like to welcome you to the second session of the Fall 2022 Bright Futures Career Speaker Series. The Bright Futures Career Speaker Series is an educational webinar sponsored by the Napa County Office of Education, the Marin County Office of Education, Napa Valley College, College of Marin, and the Workforce Alliance of the North Bay. Today's presentation topics will cover careers in manufacturing and the wine industry. The moderator of today's program is Angela Higdon from the Napa County Office of Education. And as you can see, we have 4 career presenters today. They will introduce themselves shortly, and we will be recording this webinar. But before we get started with today's program, I'm going to do some quick housekeeping so that we're all on the same page throughout the webinar. So first of all, why offer a career speaker series? Well, first, we would like to introduce you to some of our local professional experts. We'd like to introduce you to some jobs that you may not have heard about before, and we'd like to help you to make informed decisions about the next steps on your career path, whether you're a student or a job seeker. So what to expect today? The presentation hour will include an introduction, like we're doing now, a speaker panel discussion time, and then question and answer time. Please use the chat function of the webinar to ask your questions. We will repeat the questions out loud to the speakers, so don't worry about that. And then this is our career speaker series schedule for the fall program. Please join us if you can for future webinars. And with that, I'm going to hand the mic over to Angela Higdon, who will get our program started.
All right, good afternoon, and thank you to everybody, our panelists and our participants, for being here tonight. And we're going to go ahead and jump right in. What I'd love to do is have each of our panelists introduce themselves. If you could introduce yourself, tell us about your organization and your role within that organization. And Stan, can we start with you?
Sure. Hi, Angela. My name is Stan Hitchcock. I'm the professor and coordinator of the Machine Tool Technology program at Napa Valley College.
All right. Thanks, Stan. How about you, Brian?
Good afternoon, Angela. Brian Lord, operations manager, Multicolor Labels Corporation here in Napa.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Brian.
Brian with a Y. Yep, my name is Brian. I'm a co-founder for Vintners Institute. Vintners Institute is essentially has 2 sides to it. It's got a guild for coordinating applied research between growers and winemakers, and the other side is a workforce training element.
Wonderful, Brian. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Jonathan Briggs.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Briggs. I am the training and EHS manager for all of Gallo's coastal operations, which includes 42 vineyards and 12 wineries going from the Central Coast all the way up to Washington.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. So since we've got you on the spot already, let's start with you. When did you decide you wanted to work in your industry, Jonathan?
Oh, it's a funny story. My background is in agribusiness. I graduated from the University of Arkansas with a degree in poultry science, which has nothing to do with wine. And from there, I worked in operations at multiple different poultry facilities across the United States for 8 years. I was going to go back to school and teach high school math and science, and was actually going down that pathway. And one of my friends said, "Hey, what a cool job working in the wine industry. You should apply for this." I don't know anything about wine. I don't even drink wine. And I applied for the job, came out here to California, and here I am 8 years later working in the wine industry. So that's kind of how I got into it. You kind of stumble your way into these things sometimes, and it goes that way. It's just about knowing that things are available and kind of what's out there.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, Jonathan. Brian, same question. When did you decide you wanted to work in your industry?
I'll take that. It was Brian with an I.
Sorry, yes, I'm sorry, Brian. I'll do better with that.
We'll just make that a rule, Brian.
Yeah, there you
Brian
go.
with the I goes first.
So it's it is quite comical to listen to people's career paths and choices, and most, if not the majority, are not planned out, and mine was not either. I got into printing wine and spirit labels. I've been in printing overall since '96, but I came out to California from Georgia because two plants that I worked for shut down, and the opportunity to come out west out here was wide open. So yeah, I've been in printing since '96, but wine and spirit labels for a little over 7.5 years now.
All right. Thank you, Brian with an I. How about Brian with a Y?
Yeah, I've always been interested in science, and I didn't really know exactly what that was, but I knew that whatever I did, it should be sciencey of sorts. And so I wanted to go to UC Davis, and I was working in a lab, an infectious disease research lab, working on a little 96 well plate. And I just got to the point where I was thinking that I want to work with the microbes versus against them. I like to cook. So when I heard about UC Davis and the wine program, and it just really got me excited about it. And I went and I did an internship in it, and it was, a blend of science, tasting juices and wines, and riding on the forklift. I think the forklift is what sealed the deal. But yeah, it just kind of hit all the spots for me, and haven't done anything else since. It's been all wine industry.
That's great. Thanks, Brian. Stan with an S.
Thank you. So my story is interesting. I'm a local boy, grew up here in Napa. I'm a graduate of Napa High. And when I finished up high school, I didn't have a clue as far as what I wanted to do. So my career was part dumb luck, part just kind of right place, right time. I ended up getting a summer job at Mare Island Naval Shipyard in the machine shop there. Loved it. Loved that type of work. Loved it that you're kind of thinking with your head, working with your hands. I thought, hey, I can do this kind of work. Tried to get hired on permanently. Couldn't do that. At that time, Vietnam was everybody was kind of coming home from there and things. So they were only hiring veterans. So I ended up right about that time, I turned 18, got my draft number in the mail. It was number 4. And so I thought, well, maybe I should do something about that. I enlisted in the Navy as a machinery repairman, a shop machinist, and apprenticed there. Had 4 fun years in the Navy, joined the Navy to see the world. I ended up at Mare Island for a lot of that time, but did make a couple of overseas Western Pacific tours. And then when I got out, I ended up going to work at Kaiser Steel just down the road they recognized my Navy experience as being journey level, and they had actually hired some of my shipmates before me. And so I went to work there as a journeyman, worked there a number of years. And then I did go on to Mare Island to work in the machine shop there as a journeyman for a number of years. During that time, as a veteran, I also had the GI Bill at my disposal. So I was going to school at night and graduated from Napa Valley College, and then took a break and then went on to a 4-year institution after that, all the way working in the shop, then working my way up into management positions. And then around 2005, I went to work at the California Maritime Academy. I actually went to work on the training ship as the logistics officer. So it's kind of funny, like being back in the Navy again, but sort of a play Navy. But anyway, the gentleman who was teaching machine shop on campus retired. I put in for his job and started teaching there, and absolutely enjoyed it, loved it tremendously. Then when this job opened up at Napa Valley College, it was kind of like coming full circle. I applied and was hired into that position. That was in 2016, and I'm having a blast. I absolutely love it.
That's great. Returning home.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Thanks, Stan. Brian with an I. Why do you do what you do?
Well, not always been this way. I really didn't have plans on being a manager or in operations, to be honest with you. But it evolved over time through a lot of mentors. A lot of people helped me along the way. A lot of people saw some skill that I had with people, and I enjoy now for the past. I've been here 7.5 years, so I'd say past 17 years. I enjoy watching people grow and providing them the avenue to see the skill sets they actually have. I get really excited when people say they can't do something, or they'll never do that, and that's kind of the internal challenge to see what they can do. And I use a lot of parallel learning for teaching people in groups, and small as 2, sometimes as large as 15 or 20. Take something that they really, really have a strong passion for, and listen to them explain to me how they're successful at it, and then using that same process for something here at work, a program or a process, or a goal or something we're attempting to get to. But the fun part is watching someone see that they can apply the same logic that got them success in something that they really had a lot of passion in. So I'd say that over the last close to 17 years, that's been really the driving force for me, really not looking at it as work. It's really fun. I enjoy it. Still kind of pinch myself to say that I get to do it in Napa. I never thought I'd be in Napa. I'm originally from Atlanta, but yeah, it's kind of a dream in a way, but it's reality. And people, what I've seen out here, and I talked to a lot of people in the industry and out of the industry too, that getting people engaged into what we're doing seems to be one of the hardest pieces. And that's the programs that we use here, is to get people engaged, so it's not a forced a meal, to say people enjoy what's being served in the meetings, as far as how we present things and how that we make the connectivity. But that makes it really fun, and that's really why I do what I do, to watch somebody take that, and it's not really something memorized, it's something they actually learned. So.
All right, thanks, Brian. Jonathan, what about you?
Sorry, there we go. Yeah, actually, this has been an interesting question for me lately. There's a lot of different pathways that at Gallo, like as professional workers, that we can choose to go down. And so you need to look at where you want to go and what you're at. And one of the things that I realized lately in my life is that I really enjoy training. And that's a big part of my job. The reason and the things that I enjoy about that is that in our workforce now, especially at Gallo, we're seeing a lot of changeover of new people coming in, right, and talking to new individuals. And studies show that young adult learners really want to be engaged from a learning perspective, not just about their roles, but about other things, about development and where are they going to go and things that excite them. And so that's one of the things that we're really focused on at Gallo, and one of those things that we're building those pathways out for. And so I just love being able to do that and to work with people on kind of trying to figure out those educational pathways and opportunities for new hires and students as they learn more and more about what they want to do with their long-term career. Because typically an employee doesn't always start where they finish nowadays. In fact, they often leave the company. So the perspectives have changed in the hiring industry about how do we really work on developing that employee for whatever their future is. And so I get to work on that. That's why I do what I do. It's why I love what I do. And it's what I enjoy.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. And Stan, I know you touched a little bit on it, but can you go a little bit more in depth as to why you do what you do?
Why I do what I do, and yeah, it's I touched on it before. It's that psychic paycheck, as far as having someone who's green, if you will, come into my program and see them basically build their skill sets, and everything builds on each other as we go through the process. And when they come out of my program 4 semesters later, have them be work ready and go out and get a good successful living wage job in the industry. That's why I do what I do. I tell you, that's what gets me out of bed every morning, and I have a great time doing it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And Brian with a Y.
Yeah, once I graduated from UC Davis, I went to work for Gallo in the research winery in Modesto. And, for me, that really just, it allowed me to do so many things to a grape and see what kind of flavor came out of it, and really just, just learn about the power of winemaking and developing flavor and all that stuff from kind of a nerdy perspective. From there, I moved on as my family got a little bit, well, we had more kids, wanted to get closer to family, got into a wine lab. So I was able to get deeper into the chemistry aspects of winemaking, but also taking a lot of that knowledge and starting to work with the outside community, because Gallo's huge, right? I don't have to tell you that, Jonathan. And it's whole community within itself, right? But then going from Gallo to, I went to Vinquery, which was this wine lab, helping, smaller vintners, winemakers, and people make decisions. I really enjoyed the people part of that business. So it wasn't too much longer after that I took a full-time position with Napa Valley College teaching winemaking, and doing some consulting winemaking and really learning, all right, taking all this knowledge, producing a product that people want to drink, not just research, and then learning how to convey all these big ideas that I had learned, from UC Davis and Gallo and at the lab to new people that were new and hungry for this information, and then helping them get jobs, right? So listening, about where they wanted to go with their careers, what they were bringing in, as a starting point, and helping them close that gap as far as what kind of skill sets would they need to reach their goals. I really loved that. I got to about 2015 and I left the college to pursue winemaking. I was a Pope Valley winemaker for a while there, and I missed the teaching a lot. So, I adjunct teach at Santa Rosa JC in a wine class, but I'm also writing, kind of teaching for a larger community for Wine Business Monthly. And then I've started this organization called Vintners Institute, which is really kind of this bridge, right? So while we're exploring new ways to bring in new science that's coming from the universities, trying to figure out all this crazy stuff with climate change, California doesn't have any water, and all these little things like that, coordinating applied research with winemakers and growers, creating new best practices, right? Or at least new practices. They're not necessarily best yet. And so as those start to get adopted, on the academy side, I'm enjoying writing the curriculum to kind of train all those skill sets in winemaking, vit, and sustainable operations. So, just coming back to really trying to connect the people with their career path, and that's what keeps me coming back to work every day.
All right. Thanks so much, Brian. Are you still making wine?
I do, but not commercially.
Just for your own
Yeah,
personal.
wine and a bunch of other stuff.
Okay. All right. So Stan, let's take it to you. What do you think? And feel free to put this from a machining standpoint, manufacturing standpoint, or from you as a teacher, but what do you think are the key personality traits and skills required for success?
That's interesting you would say that, Angela. One of the things that I stress in my class, I try and set my classroom up since we meet 4 days a week, we're together for about 3.5 hours, set it up to be like a workspace. And I talk about, not only the skills that it takes to be a machinist, but I talk about the soft skills that someone needs in order to get a job and to keep a job. I talk to my employers who hire my people. I talk to the folks on my industry advisory board, and I ask them, what are you looking for in an employee? And they say, first and foremost, I'm looking for someone who's going to show up. I said, really? And I said, you'd be surprised. I said, I probably would. But, showing up on time, being prepared, being work ready to go to work, having an open mind, paying attention, be willing to learn, be willing to take some criticism and things. But I talk about those soft skills quite a bit, along with the hard skills. And whenever I get, matter of fact, Jonathan, I just got a job announcement from Gallo in Modesto, where you folks are looking for machinists down there. And I went through that job description just to kind of put you on the spot there. And I said, let's look and see what Gallo is looking for here. Okay, they want you to have these skills, that skills, but look at this, the ability to get along with people, show up every day. They want those soft skills as well. I said, those are the things that are going to get you hired. It's your hard skills that are going to kind of keep you there.
Yeah. Well, and you know what, coming from the K-12 side of things, what we hear so often from employers is we can teach them the technical skills. It is those soft skills that are so difficult sometimes. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Jonathan, what about you?
This mute button's going to kill me. I think one of the things that's been coming up very frequently lately that's changed is kind of the skill set of self-reflection. So we're all in a constant state of change, right? The ability to take a step back, look at where you are, why you're there, and where you want to be or where you're going. If you can do that, then you can start to reflect on what are the steps that I need to do to go there. As we were talking about, Steve was talking about job descriptions, right? Those job descriptions are out there. There are so many resources available online. If you have a hint of what you want to do, you can go to Indeed and look at job descriptions all day long and start to identify those key things and steps to start to qualify you for those different places. Some have technical skills, some don't, but you're right, Angela. The technical skills, most industries, when you are starting in them, will empower you to become a technical professional. That's going to be one of the first steps that they take. So whether you're out there at the beginning of your career, in the same place that I am right now, and the ability to look at where you're at, where you want to go, and to start to make those decisions and to take those steps, that's a big deal that we're looking at right now, because we often get asked, well, what does it take to get me there? Well, let me show you how to start evaluating that. And that's one of those skills that's really important for people to be able to approach, because it's sensitive at times and it's hard, right? You've got to be honest with yourself. So that's probably right now how I would answer that question.
All right. Great answer. Thank you so much. Brian with a Y.
I couldn't agree more with the soft skills, and just having that level of introspection, wanting to get out of bed and go to work is a big deal, right? If you can't do that, that's your first strike against you, right? And so, asking yourself why you're here, where do you really want to be? I mean, if you don't really want to be where you're at, it's a good idea to think about changing direction. So I think those are great answers, and I that's already kind of been led in with. The other skills I think are really important is, I think it helps to be somebody who wants to make something, right? I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do. You can consult, you can provide a service, you can sell. Those are all important, right? Everybody has to sell something for us to make a living and not have to go out and hunt rabbits or something. So, first of all, you got to want to make something. And then once you get into the manufacturing segment, when, at the development stage, you got to understand the science enough, or at least the substance enough to be able to make something, right? And that's where you're getting into the technology, right? So you understand what you're working with, the technology kind of delivers this science. And then you've got a quality management component of it that delivers it the same time every single time, right? So if you're selling shoes and you say it's a size 12, it's not really a size 11 or a size 10. So there's those three kind of big technical components that I think are helpful to know: is a little bit of science, a little, the understanding of technology and how that relates to the science. And then what does quality management mean, right? What is quality? How do you deliver the same thing over and over? But like these guys said before, if nobody wants to work with you, it doesn't matter how smart you are.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. Brian with an I.
This one's a fun one for me. I'd say the biggest, even if they have a skill set, when we're going through big change in the printing industry, where a lot of older style printing is kind of going out, and a lot of bottlers are getting new types of equipment. So the older style of printing is kind of going to the wayside. And the number one piece that gets someone in the door and keeps them in the door is positive attitude. But with that, I also ask them during interviews or shadowings or plant tours of what have they really failed at recently, and I like to hear what they say, because if they can articulate, they attempted to do something that they weren't comfortable with, and they learned from that, and they can explain that. That's something we can work with. If somebody's always in their comfort zone, and if they grew up playing soccer and they played soccer all the way through whatever, and they just kept playing soccer, but if they say, hey, I tried baseball, or I tried, my parents forced me to do something else, and I really didn't like it, but I found some friends in that group. And with all the people we have here, we have a little over 350 in this building here alone altogether. In the manufacturing that, we got about 200 so roughly. But everybody's a person. That's what I look at, and trying to tap in to see what drives them, and see it when they define failure. And when they usually start talking about the failure, that it's not a normal question to hear during a job interview. And they like to think that I'm asking them more about a specific in work. And I say it can apply anywhere. It doesn't have to be, work, because you're the same person, whether you're at work or not work. So just kind of and then watch them really start to be much more engaged in conversation, and start to elaborate and tell me different things, and I tell them to keep going on. But I really think that where people think that we want to hear certain things during an interview, but it's really about the attitude, and the skill set's not super important. If they've had some type of skill set before, we can usually transfer that into a lot of different roles here. I mean, we have thousands of task breakdowns or SOPs. It's there. We know what to do. The making labels is really not the hard part. We got past that years ago. It's getting the new people, and having them engaged to making new processes, instead of having somebody in leadership forcing something down on them. But here we allow them to make the future that they're going to be living into, and to have a voice in that. So, but getting them in the door, number one with me is attitude and how they view things.
Sorry, I was muted. Brian, don't go. I'm going to put the next one to you. So, obviously everybody's talked about those soft skills, the attitude, that kind of thing. What about actual training? And maybe you could tell us a little bit about different phases of a career path within your industry.
So I'm interpreting this in how we do different types of training. So we've adopted here at this facility years ago. We have trainer programs. That way we're training consistently. And each person has their own personality, so they have their own type of spin to it. But we also have we have a way to, to go through and show someone how to do something, and then have that person walk you through what you just showed them verbally, like what you're doing, so they understand what you're actually doing. And then then they will get a chance to do it on their own, and then the trainer will talk them through what they're doing as well. So it's not just, hey, here's what it is, this is how we do it, watch what I do, those type of things. But really, there's a method to our madness, and it's really, really simple. And we really do it to the format of like turning on a garden hose, something that most people have done. And assuming that they put the right fitting on the garden hose, they all go, clockwise and counterclockwise to turn on. So asking someone, do you know how to turn on a garden hose? And initially they say, yeah, I've done that a lot before. And they say, well, what about this one? Do you know how this one cuts on? And they say, oh yeah, it looks like the same thing I had at my mom's house or my uncle's house. Everybody knows, why are you asking me this? So we really want to dumb it down and prove out the process that you really don't know until you go through the training. Because a lot of times their brain is completing a gap on something they have experience with, but it may be a different type of valve, and you actually are cutting on something versus cutting off something. So then that could be a huge safety or quality or production issue. So we really look at the simplistic part of it and get the process of how we train here, and get the new employees or people who've been for 35 plus years to understand how we're going to train, how we go through this training. And it's active. It's not like we have a passive person, someone taking notes or someone checked out. Someone touched on earlier about showing up. When we say show up, we also don't mean just show up in physical form, but you show up meaning that you put some effort into showing up. So if I say, hey, we're going to train on water hose turning on and off tomorrow, just make it really simple, dumb it down. Or fluid control, however, whichever technical term we want to use, but it's simply just cutting on garden hose. And then I say, hey, I challenge you to come in tomorrow and bring me some information on how to cut off a water hose. And some people will go through very minimal effort, and then some people you'll just throw it out there, see what they're able to show up with. And that means a lot. I would rather have someone that does the preparation, that does not have natural talent of being mechanically or come across as understanding things well. I'd rather take someone who has the ability and the drive to want to do better over someone who naturally has a natural talent and gift to do something. So hopefully that helps.
Yep. Thanks, Brian. Dan, what about you?
Well, as far as kind of the rules of the road in my shop, we start up, everybody is equal when we start out. The first thing that's really driven home is shop safety. Machine shop can be a very deadly environment, if one isn't careful. And so we cover shop safety. They're quizzed on shop safety. We get into measurement. We get into scale measurement, measuring fractions. Then we get into precision measurement, where we measure down to 1/10,000th of an inch. And the students show proficiency in that. Then we get into doing various hand build projects and things, and then we work our way into very simple machine tool projects dealing with loose tolerances, fractional tolerances. Then we work our way down to the tighter tolerances as their skill sets improve. And then all the way, like I kind of touched on earlier, things build off of them off of each other. So if you miss out on a lecture, or you miss out on a demonstration, it's not repeated, and nothing is recorded. So if you miss a day, you're missing out. So that's why I really drive home attendance. And again, that showing up thing, you got to show up to play. But it's developing those skill sets over time. They're repeated in different projects so that they're emphasized and re-emphasized, and then it becomes kind of a natural part of the process that they follow.
All right, thanks. Jonathan, what about you?
Can you repeat what you're looking
Yes.
for just real quick before I jump in?
What type of training is required through various aspects of the manufacturing process, I guess?
Oh yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna I'm gonna go a little broader than just manufacturing for us. So Gallo's big. It's like 9,000 employees. So it's everything from farming grapes to sales, engineers, uh, maintenance, administration, operations managers, finance, everything like that. So obviously we have some roles where you do need more of a background and maybe like a field of study, right? So if you want to be an engineer, we require an engineering degree. But in the operations world, depending on where you are, most of it is done either on the job, like Brian with an I was talking about, where you're partnered with somebody. We do a ton of shadowing, but then we also do on the job training for different skill sets. We probably, the more technical it gets. So if you're getting to run like a larger equipment center, centrifuge, a filler, a bottling, something that runs, 170 bottles a minute, then you're probably getting more into like more of an technical learning class. If you're managing our hazardous waste programs, then we're going to make sure that you have hazardous waste certificates that are required. So depending on where your job is at, you're probably going to get a mix of extremely technical to Gallo specific training for what you're doing. We send people to conferences every year if they're a safety professional or winemaking conferences to make sure that you're keeping up with industry trends and becoming a subject matter expert in your field, so you can commingle with others out there and kind of stay abreast of everything, because we really like to have that learner, like Brian was talking about again, that shows up with a concept, right? Like that can take those ideas and challenge themselves and challenge others to how do we continuously improve. That's something that you have to do in this industry. It is a very demanding and challenging industry, and we expect everybody to be an owner of their operation at some level after they get through that introductory period. So a lot of different ways that we employ learning, a lot of different styles and just different applications for it out there.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. And finally, Brian with a Y.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably go a little bit more big picture as well. Essentially manufacturing, it's going to have a lot of different functional areas depending on where you're at in the company, the type of product that you're making. And when you're at that company level, you're dealing with specific equipment, specific processes, and that entry-level person needs to at least understand how to follow standard operating procedures. So you've got SOPs, you've got that entry-level stuff, so that at that point you might be assigned to the area ninja of XYZ cellar operation or vineyard operation, and you'll just maybe shadow that person. And then the next level would be like then you can start taking corporate training. Gallo's got great training programs. I took as many of them as I could, and it was just short courses, seminars, conferences that really talked about best practices, how to do a good job in these areas, really teaching you the language of that industry. But it's short, right? It's not an 18-week semester length course. And then you get up to the community college level, right? Where I can get a 2-year degree or maybe a certificate. A certificate's going to teach me how to speak that language. So I can come into the community college and I've had students that have PhDs, masters, bachelor's degrees, but just wanted a certificate to speak the language of that industry. Then there's folks that are coming up and they need a little bit more. They don't have another degree. They don't have that. They need the English, the math, the other base skills to be able to communicate. And that's where that AA comes in, right? So that's teaching the language of the industry, depending on what your major is. And you've got that core knowledge that you get from that 2-year degree. That's going to get you a job in the workforce, right? So that gives you that first job as a VIT tech, as a seller tech. And then now you can speak the language, you could talk to your boss, you could talk to, all the folks on this panel and start to learn for yourself and figure out your career direction. The bachelor's degree, that's where, I always tell my students, especially the ones that have military background, because I do, the 2-year degree is kind of like, an enlisted. The 4-year degree is where you're starting to look at, the officer. Now, instead of baking the cookies, you're making the recipe. So that's like the 4-year bachelor's degree. And that's kind of what you need. So if you're going to walk in to the winery with a 4-year degree, now you're creating that wine style that other people are going to follow. Once you even go up from there, you're at master's or PhD level. Now you're getting more into, instead of company level leadership, you're getting into more like industry level leadership, right? So you're solving major problems. For example, smoke taint. People in the winery, the bachelor's level folks, they're going to read the scientific papers coming out on, here's what you need to do with smoke taint. This is how you do it. They're going to write those work orders, and the staff in the cellar are going to follow those. The PhD researcher is telling that winemaker how to write those work orders, right? You're telling them, these are the chemicals involved. This is the processes involved. So, you've got those kind of steps. And it's that career ladder that if you really, if a certain subject, let's say smoke taint treatment, really makes your socks roll up and down, and you want to do more than just, do certain winery operations, and you want to master something, then you could start to get into those higher levels. And that's what they're there for, right? To get people that are excited about a very focused area to get up there and lead the industry in that.
Right. Thanks, Brian. And I'm going to keep it with you for the next question. How important is collaboration in your work or in your industry?
You can't work without it. Especially as a winemaker in manufacturing, you've got supply chain, right? You got to buy stuff from people to make stuff. So I gotta work with grape growers. I've got to work with vineyard managers. I got to, test all that stuff to make sure those grapes are ready to come in. And then I've got to have a good enough relationship with everybody so that everything's coming in the way that we talked about initially, right? We got to create a contract. We have to have some expectations, bring that stuff into the winery. We got to make it. And then at some point we got to sell it, right? So we put all that stuff, we put it in the barrels, and then we go and talk to Brian about a new label, right? And he says, well, who are you selling this to? And then I go, oh, I don't know. We got to talk to marketing, right? So we got to talk to marketing. We figure out, what do they want? Oh, we want to appeal to surfers. So we want silkscreen bottles, and we want blah, blah, blah. And so then all those pieces are really, everybody's got to be talking in the winery. Otherwise you end up with this, with a mess of a product, right? So it's key. And then going out and helping the sales staff sell those wines, or at least help them sell it and understand where the value is coming from and all that good stuff. So yeah, it's huge.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Jonathan, same question. How important is collaboration in your work?
I don't know that I would answer it any differently. I think it's absolutely key to everything that we do. If you don't know the answer, you better ask. And you better be okay with asking and be willing to do that. And that's hard for some people, right? Like, people aren't comfortable with approaching people all the time anymore, kind of looking outside themselves. You kind of almost feel like, hey, I should know these things. There's not a day where I'm not reaching out to somebody and asking somebody something, or saying, hey, have you thought about this, or doing that. I mean, today I was reaching out to our senior director of safety across Gallo as a whole. We're really interested in employee engagement. How do we really engage our employees in understanding the impact and that they have on safety culture? How do we get them to want to be a part of it, right? Like there's no reason in the world why you should not come to work and leave work in the same way that you came every single day. We don't work in a wartime environment. Like I've worked in those, we don't do that. So how do we get our employees to really engage on the level where the first thing they're thinking about naturally is how do I approach things in a safe manner? And so we've all got ideas about that. So I got an idea about, hey man, what is our next step for this? So I'm reaching out to my senior director, somebody that outranks me for Gallo. You know, he's right up there underneath our vice president of safety and EHS. And I'm saying, hey, Derek, have you thought about this? Right? 9 out of 10 times I am shut down. Hey, you don't know, maybe not yet. I've asked these similar questions before, but you have to be willing to engage with others and to kind of put yourself out there and just really talk, no matter what role you're in. If you are a general line tech that is day one on the job, you're going to have to go out and ask those same type of questions. And so if you can't do that, then it's really hard to go anywhere in this industry because it's changing all the time and it's constantly moving.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. Stan, same question to you.
Collaboration is key to everything. So when my students come in to my classroom in the morning, they see me, they see this pretty face here, and but what they don't know, that behind the scenes, I'm working with them. I'm working with counselors. I'm working with administrators. I'm working with different services folks to help support them and their needs in the program, and I let them know that. And not only working with those, I'm working with those in our business office over things like budgeting, capital expenditures, things like that. I'm working with my academic dean on different program initiatives and things like that. I also serve on various faculty committees, and I let my students know that I do that so that they know there's more to me than just standing in front of them and delivering a lecture. I also collaborate quite consistently with my industry advisory board, my industry partners, and quiz them about industry trends. Where should I be going as far as my technology? What kind of machine tools should I be looking at purchasing and changing out to keep up with industry trends? I'm also collaborating with my peers in the community college arena as well to see what's going on at their institutions. Look at trends like as far as people in the seats. Are we seeing enrollments up, down, whatever, things like that? But you can't work in a void. You have to collaborate. It's part of the business model.
All right, thanks, Dan. And Brian Lord, anything to add?
There we go. Yeah, so I'd like to look at it more as two people communicating, call it collaboration. I'm just going to translate it to communication, but you get a third person involved, a fourth person involved, fifth person, and it just starts building over and over. So the collaboration between different departments. So people may think, if you're a leader or a manager or any type of you have people under you. I don't like using the word boss, but you're accountable for certain people. So from the outside looking in, a lot of times people think, oh, you're their boss. You can tell them what to do, and that you garner their attention because you're boss. But I would say that that's the direct opposite of the collaboration piece. We in wine and spirits here in Napa, Multicolor, I have to work with everybody within the building, from general floor people, straight in, hardly any skill set as far as transferable. They come in, do a little cleaning, to work with HR, have to work with sales, CSRs, planning, purchasing. I mean, every person underneath the roof, I have to work with almost daily, accounting too. And it's not a part of I have to. It's a part of, we enjoy working with each other because to get their perspective on things. And sometimes people, if you don't ask, you won't get an answer. If you don't speak to someone in a way that they want to talk to you back, you're not probably going to get an answer or have some type of conversation other than a yes or a no, and they walk away. So the ability to collaborate and communicate effectively, it can be very short, but it can also be, as far as getting some information is very important to, my side's operations. But also, I hear someone in sales say something, and I'll say, oh, what are we discussing today? Be a certain customer or a brand or what it would be. And they'll ask me, oh, what do you know about it? And we'll start talking about it. A lot of times somebody else will walk up and we talk, and they'll say, oh, this and that and the other, that customer, they change their bottling to another facility and it's got to go out on a different type of a core, different type of roll line, some specifics within the industry. And then it's, oh, Susan over there, let me call her. So I think that the organic piece of collaboration and just simple communication and being respectful and being willing to just find out, oh, this is what I know. I don't know anything about that. And being genuine, I think that breeds that welcomingness of collaboration. Like, hey, I don't know this. I'm intrigued by this, or it would help me complete this project, or this. The biggest one is we do very good here in this facility on responding to a customer or responding to a complaint or responding to something that we did for the customer or didn't do that didn't meet their expectations. So damage control we do here very, very well. If we did the initial part in every single job every day, we wouldn't have to worry about it. But the fortunate part is we do good in how we respond. And that takes a lot of collaboration. So everybody jumps in, no matter what the title is within this facility, jumps in and sees what we can do to get the customer what they need. And 95% of the time, it has something to do with labels. Every now and then we'll have a freight third party. And we look at that as well, too, just because, the third party freight company didn't get labels there. Our customer does not care what happened. They care that they can't put the labels that they asked for on the bottles when they ask for them by a certain time. So we jump into recovery mode. If it got lost in UPS or FedEx or whatever company it would be, and it's up in the company's up in Canada, we will do whatever it takes to stop what we're doing and work that in to get the customer out. And that collaboration piece has to happen because it's not there's no vacuum. Even we have our pre-press department where there's a lot of artistic people in there that have a lot of technical skills, and they seem to be labeled more as introverts because they work by themselves so much each day, but they don't really, because you can go up to them and ask them about a job, certain things in the job, and they will know that. It's just that they're hyper focused on what they're doing on a computer, on a screen, or with the pixels or the dots. But I'll tell you that without active collaboration, we would not be here. This facility would not be here. I can tell you that.
All right, Brian, thank you so much. I think we've got time actually just for one more. This has been the quickest hour ever. And Stan, I'll start with you. What do you think is the best thing about working in your industry? And then on the flip side, what is the most challenging?
So the best thing about working in my industry, as far as teaching and teaching machine shop, is getting that reward from people, learning and being successful out in their careers. Pardon me. I got an email just the other week from one of my former students who sent me a just a checking in email. He says, "Hey, I just want to let you know I just got my journey level card. I'm a journeyman machinist at East Bay Municipal Utility District. My wife and I just had a baby. We bought a house in Alameda." He's set. He's doing it. He's living the dream. That's the big payoff for me, and that's the big thing that I get out of my job is student success once they either in my program and once they leave my program. The big downside is just the opposite of that. Is sometimes we find that this trade, this vocation, isn't for everyone, and you have those students who stumble and fail, and the sad part is reaching that point where you got to, kind of set them aside and say, look, maybe this isn't for you, and try and set them on a different career path. But I always, getting back to collaboration, I try and look at somewhere for them to go once they leave my program. Would they do better at something like welding? Would they do better at hospitality? Would they, we also have a very successful nursing program, those types of things. So it's that I don't want to call it failure, but that setback with some students, that's the downside.
Okay, thanks, Stan. Brian with a Y. Same question. Best thing about working in your industry, maybe the most challenging.
Well, the best thing is, there's not a whole lot of beverages out there where all the liquid in that beverage, or most of it, comes through the roots of a plant and ends up in that bottle, right? And so you've got a beverage that can actually, express a sense of place. And that's pretty unique. And so how do people enjoy this beverage? Well, with nice food, some good people. So it's a very hospitality driven industry. It's, a sexy industry. It looks really great from the outside, right? The hard part, crush, right? Doing crush. The reason that a crush widow term has been invented is because it's a long time, right? So somebody might be working for, a long time, maybe 4 weeks solid without a day off. And you don't always have that balance, right? So that's the hard part. And trying to get that balance through experience and all that good stuff is one thing. Also, wine is, it's a commodity market. There's a lot of wines out there. You go to the grocery store, there's walls full of wine. Wine is hard to sell, right? And, Brian, I'm sure you don't sell just 1 or 2 labels, right? You've got probably 1 million that have come out of your shop. So wine's hard to sell. You got to connect with people, and, it's something that you got to do. So there's some really, really awesome sides to wine. And then there's some really gritty parts that need, focus and dedication. So yeah, there's certainly a balance.
Thanks, Brian. Brian Lord, what about you?
Well, I would say, for me, the things that I look at and really take to heart for what I do and what we do in this industry, I enjoy people, and I enjoy when people get it. That's one of the greatest things about, for teaching, because that's what I really classify what I do as work now, teaching, whether it be someone, teaching them how to do something on a printing press or in a wash up area for printing, or how to deal with a finisher, so our position in leadership doesn't just stop at making wine labels, and getting them to be here. And I really, really do enjoy it, to a great degree. But to see somebody give up, for outside influences that they can't, they feel they can't control, even though with the coaching that we give them as much, we put all hands on deck when somebody says, hey, I'm thinking about leaving, we're like, we got a lot, why, what can we do? And that's the hard part, someone that, a family member, or they have to move somewhere. That's a hard part, because we have no control in that. But the good part is we usually have other people, as well too, that need some mentoring and some coaching, and then go through annual trainings. And if we get a new press that comes in, the exciting part. But I guess the drawback is when it doesn't work out, and we really want to salvage that relationship, or repurpose them into somewhere that, if they get tired of what they're doing here, like, oh, I'm just kind of burnt out on doing it. I've been doing it for 10 years. I'm like, well, have you thought about this? And we offer them opportunities. And quickly in the conversations, you can tell that it's not that they have some other type of employment somewhere, or there's something that we damage the relationship along the way, and they're not communicating what it is that we could do, to salvage that. But that would be one of the harder pieces, because we're dealing with people, day in, day out. We could take anybody that's got, couple 100 million can buy a plant and make labels or make wine or whatever you want to, or whatever you want to manufacture or make or do. But dealing with the people day in, day out, and being consistent with them, that's what that process, I really enjoy that, because I do all kinds of stuff to try to get my head in the right space so I can talk with someone and truly empathize with what they're going through, and not discount it and say, oh yeah, that's great, but we got a job to do. Nobody wants to hear that, if they have to stop work for their parents have cancer, or mom had a stroke and they had to go deal with that. But being able to put yourself in their shoes and really understand it, that's really the hard part, because you put a lot into it and there's no guarantee that they're going to stay, so that's the hard part for me. The best part is, we have tons of people that love to get trained, and they might not say it, but we have to tap into a way of how do they learn? How do they retain? How can we do something to make a measurable change? Like, what are we going after? And they see that data too. People are driven by different pieces of reward. It's not always. I will tell you, years ago when I got into management, I thought it was financial, and the money. As long as the money is competitive, the money has the least amount to do with retaining people and attracting talent. So a lot of times you have to pay to get them, but to retain them, it's usually not the money. So it's usually outside influence.
All right, thanks, Brian. All right, last but not least, Jonathan.
That mute button. All right.
How to do that?
Yeah. So, what is best about my job, my industry, whatever. So I worked in the poultry industry before this. People don't typically choose to eat chicken, right? Like, you eat chicken because it's the cheapest protein you could probably buy, and it's pretty like blank slate. People choose to drink wine. It's a choice. It's not a necessity. It is a luxury item, no matter how you split it. That's how it is. And they choose to typically do that when they're wanting to do something fun. So that's kind of the coolest thing. And that leads into this, is that the hardest thing at that same time is, like, you're going to feel the value because of that. Gallo is going to pump you up and keep you busy and keep your plate full. No matter what you do, no matter where you work at, you're always going to have more than enough. And so the hardest thing about this is that balance. We want our employees to have what we call a work-life balance, and it is so difficult. But I think Gallo, especially where I get to work, we believe that who you are outside of work makes you a better employee inside of work. So if I'm a better dad, then I'm a better manager. Those things aren't exclusive of each other, and they never can be. Your worldview, your values impact everything about who you are and what you want to do and why we're investing in you in the first place. And so I think, while Gallo's the greatest company that I've ever worked for, it is by far the hardest company to maintain your work-life balance. And it's something that I fail at often. So, we'll keep you full, we'll keep you busy, but at the same time, we want you to really do that. And that's a challenge.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for sharing your afternoon with us, sharing yourselves with us. I know that this is so valuable to our students, to those job seekers out there who might be trying to figure out what their next step is. So again, we couldn't do this without amazing partners, and we so appreciate everything that you do.
Yeah,
Cedal,
thank you.
Yeah, nice work, ladies. I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank y'all.
We really appreciate your time. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.